Why Sweden? Well, 80% of Russia's international internet traffic goes through the country. And of course, Russia's not alone either in being subject to the allegations of high-profile snooping by the NSA. Germany's Der Spiegel magazine revealed earlier this year that the agency had also targeted Chancellor Angela Merkel. Also reportedly on Washington's radar, Brazil's President Dilma Rousseff, as well as the Russian Prime Minister and former leader Dmitry Medvedev. He apparently was spied on at the G20 summit in London back in 2009 with some help from Britain's GCHQ. Let's go live to Washington, D.C. Intelligence analyst Glenn Trina-Harvey's there for us to put a bit more flesh on the bones of this developing story. Hi there. Nice to see you tonight. How much do you think Sweden has been spying on Russia end of the day?
I think it's always a surprise because one imagines Sweden, a neutral country, not engaging with the other protagonists during the Cold War. Well, Tommy rot. In point of fact, the Swedes have been working, first of all, with the British, the Government Communications Headquarter, GCHQ, which are virtually joined by an umbilical cord with NSA. In fact, if we go back to 1952, there was a Swedish Air Force DC-3 Dakota that was doing surveillance work on the then Soviet states of Estonia and Lithuania. Well, along came a Soviet MiG-15 and shot it down. All 8 were killed. The interesting thing was that the equipment aboard that Dakota at that time was all supplied by the British GCHQ. Mind you, back in 1981, when the Soviet Whiskey-class submarine 363 went aground, it had been spying on the Swedish naval port there, and of course that famously gave the title of the incident, Whiskey on the Rocks. But as you said in your introduction there, so much of the internet traffic goes from the Russian Federation to the rest of the world, but it goes through cabling that passes through Sweden. And Sweden, working with GCHQ, working indeed with the National Security Agency, have been party to it. You
how legal is it for a country to tap into that kind of information that's running through its country like that? Internet information streaming through it as a carrier country. How legal is it?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm associated with the spook world.
All right, how easy is it then to tap in? Let's talk about that instead.
Oh, jolly easy, yes indeed. And in fact, the various nodes around the world, that's one of the reasons that the NSA, working with some of its contractors here in the United States, finds it quite so easily. The actual tubing, the cabling that goes through is very easy indeed.
What can they glean from it?
That we're talking about. Well, now this is the interesting thing, that there is just so much information. Your previous correspondent mentioned the billions of telephone calls that are monitored. The amount of information, and I think there's something like 22 teraflops of information that the NSA hold, it's impossible to analyze it except that the metadata that you can actually see the movements of people. In the case of the internet traffic, if you identify the sender and the recipient, then automatically some of these huge Cray computers can identify a link. And this is it, the linkage between people.
Well, we've got you on the line, actually. Good time to mention, of course, these revelations have also come out that the NSA is harvesting data from hundreds of millions of cell phones of ordinary people around the world. And we just talked about the massive amount of information there. How do they start to filter it down? And what are they, again, in the NSA's case, what are they trying to glean from that massive amount of information that's coming in?
Well, you're absolutely right. The volume of information is extraordinary. And remember, it has to be stored. And they have storage facilities both outside of the United States and here. What they will do, they will discover, let's say that someone is using a cell phone, a mobile phone, and it's just like the a navigation system you have in your motor car, that it's linked to satellites. You can say where at any given time that car is. Well, you can also say where a mobile telephone, a cell phone, is located. You can pick up that if the particular phone is one that you have an interest in, and you then know, you see the pattern of where it's been in touch with. So let's say a terrorist is communicating with one of his colleagues in Syria, what have you, then without knowing initially who the specific person they're in touch with, you start to develop a pattern. So of all those billions of calls, probably 95% of them just go into the hopper. They stay there because you know, the analysis goes back and you can see patterns emerging. And so it's said that unless you revert to good old-fashioned handwriting and live in a cave, you can't hide these days. You can be tracked anywhere.
I think they called them golden days, didn't they? Glenn Trina Harvey, thanks ever so much. Intelligence analyst on the line there from Washington. It was nice to see you.
Thank you.